Okay, doing the upper control arm, and the reason I'm doing the upper control arm, you can see here, the bushings are starting to roll out inside here on both sides. And the hardware looks really good still. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to pull this, if you look up here, I think these are 313s. I'm going to break those loose, and then I'm going to pull this bottom nut out down here, and I'm going to drop this hardware down as much, or the strut assembly down as much as I can. Just let it sit inside there, and then I'm going to work on getting all these, the routed ABS sensor, wheel speed sensor from around this cable. I'm going to pull all that out, and then I'm going to work on getting this nut loose here. So first step is let's pull those off the top. Okay, a little rusty. I didn't spray them. I should have sprayed them before I did it, but they're off. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to work on getting this out of here. I think it's a 22, 23, 24, something like that. So I'm going to pull that off of there and get that bolt knocked out of there. And the spring is contained between the upper mount and the lower mount anyway, so it's not going to just pop loose. I want to get that free and drop down, and then I'll worry about how I'm actually, well, actually then I'll go ahead and get the wheel speed sensor and stuff out of there, and then figure out how I'm going to get this out of here, this upper control arm ball joint nut. Okay, the lower bolt's out. It's a 24mm nut, and then I just basically tapped it out the back side. But before I pulled it all the way out, I used my pry bar and I stuck up under the bottom spring area right here, and I just helped wiggle it back and forth until the bolt kind of came out. There was no pressure on it at all, and then once it came out, I just grabbed the top of it and just basically pulled it straight down. Now it's free. This is what I wanted right here. I wanted it to be free. Now what you can do is you can mark it. You can take something, just, you know, like make a mark in the front of it just to know where your front spot was in case you want to pull it out, and go ahead and clean the head of that up and clean like the upper mount where it goes. But now what I'll do is I'll go ahead and pull this wire, this wheel speed sensor off all the way over, and just kind of like out of the way, and then I'll work on getting this nut off, which looks to be, I don't know, 22 to 24. I had to pull the caliper bracket off, and it's 18, I think they're 18s or 19s, these caliper bracket bolts. I had to go back over to paint my rim, so I forgot what size I put on there. Anyway, I had to pull the caliper bracket assembly off and hang it off one of my hooks back here. Now what I'm going to have to do is I'm going to have to work on getting this actual link out of here. I'm going to have to pull the link back out of the way so I can gain access to that bolt. There's a little Allen head in the bottom of it I got to get to stop this thing from spinning because there's so much rust on the end of it. Or you could heat it up with a torch and do both. So that's what I'm going to work on now. Looks to be like a 13 or 14mm, and then pull that back through out of the knuckle, and then you gain direct access to that upper control arm ball joint. So this up here is really being a booger coming out. This down here is locked up so bad I have to keep heating it up. So I'm going to spin it and cut it out of there. I've already cut as much as I can that way. I'm going to spin it around, cut a little bit more this way, cut a little bit more the other way, let that sucker drop out of there. Alright, so when you pull these out of here, you'll pull them out with the flat side up against that backstop, but as you get closer, spin the bolt. So once you get back there in like that hole, start to spin that bolt. And let the flat part go towards the strut, and then finish pulling that bolt out of there. So it'll go up against the metal, you'll be spinning it out. As you get close to the strut, you're going to spin it. The flat part is going to be up against the strut, you'll finish pulling it out. You do that on both sides. They're 21mm nuts. And then, yep, she was pretty well wore out. Well, it's just starting to get there to the point where the seal is rolling out. Go ahead and clean up anything that you need to clean up right now, and then reverse the process. That's how it goes out. There's no real pressure on this system. Like you see, I got my arm on this right now moving this thing. There's nothing dangerous about unloading or taking anything off. This is probably the most simple system that I've seen without having to unload things and, you know, worry about things coming apart in your face and stuff like that. Just a really simple system. So going back in, I cleaned up my strut tower and painted everything I wanted it to be. I cleaned up real good, got all the rust and stuff out of the bottom, painted the top of that, cleaned the top of the strut going back in. I wanted some kind of barrier in between the two, so I painted the upper part instead of the bottom. And then once I got it set in, I went ahead and stuck my control arm up there and I fed my front bolt in. Remember, flat side, fed it in, turned, finished it up the rest of the way, pulled this back over to this side, slid my bolt in that way, halfway, turn, slide the bolt in the rest of the way because it's got a flat spot on it. Or if you can get it in there and out without turning it, you're fine, but it doesn't matter. So got those two bolts in, lifted this up, make sure everything was good. I've got everything in there. Flat sides to the back on these back bolts, there's flat sides on them. And then well, I went ahead and stuck my sway bar link in here. And now I'm going to go ahead and put my top arm in just to get everything all lined up. And then we'll continue buttoning everything up. Okay, I've got everything back together. I've got the caliper bracket back on, the rotor back on there. These get torqued to 111 foot-pounds once you get them in there. I think this one's like, I think they want this torqued to like 50 foot-pounds if I remember correctly. I'm not sure. I got to go back and look. I'll show you guys the paper. What I did make a mistake on is you want to actually put your lower control arm in before you put your steering link in. You're going to fight the steering link. Yeah, go ahead and put your upper control arm in and do all the stuff I said earlier in the video, but when it comes time to put the link in, put the top of this in the knuckle first and then put the link in after, because when you go to push it in or you get it up in there, you're not going to be able to get past the top of this to get that nut on there. And it's like it's a number 6 Allen that goes in the bottom of this, on this AC Delco one. And then when I was done, I took this, I got a big old long pry bar over there sitting on that cart, and I took it and stuck it in the lower control arm and I pried it down. And then that's how I was able to get my bottom bolt in, and I torqued it to 111 foot-pounds as well. But before you put the bottom bolt in, go ahead and get the strut and everything put in here, and then get your top snugged up, your bolts all the way around, and then go ahead and mess with your assembly to get the bottom bolt in. But this is essentially how to take it apart and then put it back together. Nothing hard about it at all, guys. This was actually really simple. Let me give you a quick shot before we get off of here. I'm not going to recite the numbers. You can look at the diagram yourself. Maybe I will recite the numbers. So now you can look at it and do it. I mean, I want to get out of here, but I wanted to hurry up and get this to you. So the upper ball joint that's part of the control arm is 111 foot-pounds. The lower ball joint is 111 foot-pounds, the nut on the outside. The inner bolts are 111 foot-pounds for the inners. Your sway bar link torque is 41 foot-pounds. If you're a torque spec freak, have at it. The only ones I was concerned with are the ball joints and the inner bolts that go through these bushings right here. 111 foot-pounds, that's the key one. Now the rest of them, you can just get them tight. The nut for the ball joint, the nut for the lower ball joint, if you ever have to do that, and then the main bolts that hold everything together. The other stuff, I snug the hell out of it and I leave it alone. I don't go torquing every single thing. I've done this enough to know what they're supposed to be torqued at. But this is it. I appreciate y'all. Thanks for being here. Thanks for sitting through this video. And you asked for the upper control arm. I'm working late. I tried to hurry up and get it out to you as fast as I could and get out of here at a decent time. So this is what I came up with. I appreciate you. Subscribe to the channel. Thumbs up, guys.